Grab your cup of coca, coffee, tea, or whatever you are sipping and get cozy. Here we share and start the morning with a positive vibe. So let's reset, recharge, and reconnect right here on Cup of Cocoa and Chat. I'm Princess, host of Cup of Cocoa and Chat.
August 24th through August the 30th, weekly theme, a pace you can live with. So the heart of the week is sustainability through finding your rhythm, not necessarily slowing down, but moving at a pace that fits your life and responsibilities, capacity, relationships, goals, and joy. Our anchor thought for the week, and you'll hear me using it throughout the week if you follow me on any of my platforms. Your pace doesn't have to impress anyone. It just has to be the one you can live with. Okay? Episode number 58. Today is Monday, August 24th. And the name of our episode is A Pace You Can Live With. A pace you can live with. And I've been doing the video portion of my podcast. I think this is the third or the fourth week. And I'm still nervous, right? I'm still nervous. But we're going to get through this. So welcome to Cup of Cocoa and Chat. I am Princess, your host, and I am so glad you're here. Whether you're relaxing at home, commuting, working, running errands, or simply taking a moment for yourself, thank you for inviting me into your day. Grab your favorite beverage. Of course, you know mine is hot or cold cocoa. And let's spend a few moments together. Here at Cup of Cocoa and Chat, we're building a community that believes intentional living starts with meaningful conversations. Every week, we will explore faith, personal growth, history, lifestyle, wellness, relationships, and everyday moments that help us create a life filled with purpose. Because the life you want doesn't happen by accident, okay? It happens one intentional choice and one conversation at a time. So let's start today's Cocoa conversation. So I want to start out with a question, right? Who sets the speed limit? Who sets the speed limit? We measure ourselves against invisible expectations, such as, by this age, I should have. Everybody else seems to be. I should be doing more. But who decided how quickly your life is supposed to move? Think about that. Who decided how quickly your life is supposed to move? So that's why I ask, who sets the speed limit? Who sets the speed limit? This week, we're going to explore what it means to find a pace you can actually live with. Not someone else's pace, not the pace so the social media tells you that you should be moving at, not even the pace that may have worked for you 5 years ago. We're talking about the pace that fits your life right now. Okay? And I want to be clear. This isn't about slowing down just for the sake of slowing down, right? Because sometimes life is moving and we're moving right along with it. This is about recognizing your own capacity and leaving room for a real life to happen and knowing when you're done enough for today, right? Because the question isn't just, can I do all of this? The better question is, can I keep living like this? So, Coco family, let's talk about how we stop that invisible clock and start creating a pace we can actually live with, right? So, our first Coco conversation of today is busy doesn't tell you whether you're doing well. Busy doesn't tell you whether you're doing well, right? You see, a full schedule isn't automatically evidence of a full life, right? Just because you have all of these things to do Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday, every minute of every day, that doesn't mean that you're doing well, right? There are productive seasons when we're moving quickly, right? I get it. And those seasons, we're loving how quickly we're moving, right? So the problem isn't being busy. The question is whether the pace allows you to remain present, healthy in your habits that we've set up, connected to the people we love, and able to enjoy what we're accomplishing, right? Some of us like to show that we're busy because busy looks like success. We say, and this is a very common one, I've been so busy. I've been so busy. Almost like it's a badge of honor to say those words, right? Our calendars are full. We're running from one thing to the next. We're checking things off the list. And somewhere along the way, we've started believing that if we're busy, we must be doing well. But are we? Think about it. Are you doing well just because you're busy? Because sometimes busy can exhaust you. Sometimes busy can exhaust you. Sometimes busy can keep you from actually living the life you're working so hard to build because you're too busy, right? You ever had invitations and you're too busy to attend whatever the function is? And while you're busy and the function is going on, you're thinking to yourself, you could have gone. Or you doing something that you thought you should have been doing when you could have gone to the event that you were actually invited to, right? Because we're too busy trying to be busy and not living the life that we're working hard to build, right? Sometimes we are so busy taking care of our businesses, um, meeting deadlines at work, or just working towards our goals. It could be something like just helping somebody else. You know, every time somebody asks you to help them, you're helping them. And you think that just because you're busy doing something, that you're living well. Right? Sometimes we're handling everything that needs to be handled, that we don't have enough left when it's time to be with our families. Because you're so busy that you don't have the actual time to spend with your families, or even when it's time to be with yourself. Just that quiet time for yourself. You're too busy because you got all these things to do. Laundry. When you get home, you got all the things to do at home. And when you're at work, you got all these things you got to do at work, right? And people, you have all these things that you have to do with people, and you're so busy that you're forgetting to spend time with yourself. And here's something I think we have to be careful about. Productivity can make exhaustion look respectable. And what do I mean by that? Nobody's questions it because you're getting things done, right? You're accomplishing things, you're showing up for things. From the outside, everything might look great to everyone else, but you know what it feels like on the inside. You know when you're tired. You know when you haven't really talked to your family because you were always doing something, right? You know when you've been saying, as soon as I finish this, for the last 3 weeks, and you haven't finished it, you're just busy doing it, but you haven't finished it, that you're making all these excuses why you can't be present in your life, or you can't spend time with your family, or you just can't spend that little time with yourself, right? So I'm not saying don't be busy. There are seasons when life is busy, and I get that. There are times where we're excited about what we're doing and what we want to be, and we want to be moving. I get that. But is it, but busy isn't necessarily the problem. The question is, what is your busyness costing you? And that's where the problem lies. If being busy is constantly costing you your peace, your relationships, your rest, the ability to be present, or the enjoyment of the life you're creating, then maybe we need to look at the pace we're keeping. Sometimes the better signs of doing well are being able to say, I'm getting things done and I'm getting some rest. I'm working toward my goals and I'm spending time with the people I love. I'm productive and I still have a life outside of my productivity. Right? That's where we're getting close to a pace we can live with. And that's what this conversation today is all about. Right? I want you to know your capacity. Right? I want you to know your capacity. Because capacity isn't just time. It's also your energy, the attention, responsibilities, emotional bandwidth, your finances, and the unexpected things life brings. Okay? Two people can have the same 24 hours and completely different capacities. Okay? That's why copying someone else's routine doesn't necessarily create their results. Okay? When you know what your capacity is, you move different with the things that help you do well. So I want everybody to know your capacity, right? Because you begin to understand, okay, I can handle this. But if I add 3 more things to it now, I'm stretching myself too thin. Okay? And I think sometimes we don't recognize our capacity because we're too busy looking at what somebody else can handle. We see somebody else working, traveling, raising a family, running a business, posting every day, going here, going there, and we think, well, they're doing it. Why can't I? They don't have the same capacity that you have, right? And more importantly, their capacity has nothing to do with yours. When you understand your own capacity, you start making different decisions. You know what deserves a yes and what needs to be no. You know when to push a little harder and when to pull back. You know when something is challenging you in a good way and when something is simply draining you. Make sense? And knowing your capacity doesn't mean you never stretch yourself, because sometimes growth requires us to stretch a little bit. But here's the difference between stretching your capacity and consistently living beyond it. You can stretch and come back because you can't stay stretched forever. And that's the part of finding a pace you can live with, knowing what helps you do well and building your life around that and not around what everybody else seems capable of doing. Okay? You need to leave some margin, right? Because if every minute, every dollar, every ounce of energy, and every piece of mental bandwidth is already spoken for, where does life go when life happens, right? It's the margin, and the margin doesn't mean wasted time, right? For me, I love a margin because I think that's one of the best parts of living. When we hear the word margin, we might think about having some extra time in our schedule. But I think margin is so much more than that, right? Margin is where the life gets to happen. It's that spontaneous date you didn't plan, right? It's somebody calling and saying, hey, what are you doing? You want to go get something to eat? And you can actually say yes, right? Because every minute of your day isn't already accounted for because you got that margin. It's decided to take that long way home because it's a beautiful day. How many of us are guilty of that? We get in our cars and we just want to take a different route. It's sitting at the table taking longer than you intended. It's taking yourself somewhere just because you feel like going. It's laughing until you lose track of time. And sometimes margin is doing absolutely nothing and not feeling guilty about it, right? I think we can become so focused on making sure we're using our time wisely that we forget enjoying our time is also using it wisely. Now, Coco family, I don't want you to get it twisted. Margin doesn't mean we don't have responsibilities, right? We still have things that need to get done. But I don't want every part of your life scheduled so tightly that there's no room left for life to surprise you, if that makes sense. Because I want you to live your life, but I want you to look beyond all your responsibilities, all your busyness, and enjoy the life that you're working hard to build, right? Because some of the best moments aren't on the calendar. That's just a fact. I like spontaneous things. I like to do spontaneous things, right? And when you leave yourself some margin, you have room for the unexpected things that aren't so pleasant too. We're not going to forget about them. We're not just going to gloss over those. When something comes up, everything doesn't have to fall apart because you already left yourself a little breathing room. But now, I don't want us to think of margin only as an emergency space, right? So we're going to think of it as that spontaneous space, that space where you just do something off the calendar. That space where if something happens, you have it, but not just as an emergency space, right? Because I want I want some joy space too. I want you to have some joy space too. I want room for the phone call that turns into a 2-hour conversation with someone you haven't talked to in a while, right? Room to change your mind. Room to change your mind. Room to go somewhere you hadn't planned to go, and just room to enjoy who you are, right? Because we're talking about a space you can live with. And to me, if there's no room in your pace for life to happen, that's not much of a life. Okay? I also would like us to stop racing an invisible clock, like the examples I gave earlier when we started. We can waste a lot of time racing an invisible clock. And what do I mean by an invisible clock? It's that clock in our head that keeps telling us, I should have done this by now. I should be further along. I'm running out of time. Everybody else is ahead of me, and I need to hurry up. Who are we racing? Who are we actually racing? And where exactly is that finish line? Where? Sometimes we're rushing forward towards something simply because we've decided we're supposed to be there already. And while we're racing to get to the next thing, we can miss what's happening right now. So think about that. Stop rushing. We rush through one accomplishment because we're already thinking about the next one. We finally get something we prayed for, we worked for, or we waited for, and barely give ourselves time enough in it before asking, okay, what's next? That's how racing an invisible clock can actually waste our time, because time isn't wasted when we're sitting around doing nothing. But we can waste time by being so focused on where we think we should be that we're not present where we actually are. I'm going to repeat that. Time is not wasted while we're sitting around doing nothing, right? But we can waste time by being so focused on where we think we should be that we're not present where we actually are. And comparison will keep that invisible clock ticking. Just tick it, just tick it, just tick it. You see somebody your age doing something and suddenly you think, maybe I'm behind, right? We hear all the time about people 70, 75, just getting their degrees. I was looking at TikTok yesterday, and this young lady was videoing her and her grandmother is it skip lining? Skylining? Where you go across the tightrope. Her grandmother was 90. She was 90 or 92. And it was on her bucket list. And she went across that thing, and that is it skylining? I think it's called skylining. And she went across like she was 20, 25. I don't have the heart to do it, right? Like, I'm scared of heights. But kudos to her, 90 or 92 years old, right? She wasn't sitting around thinking that she was too old to do that. She did it. She accomplished it, right? She didn't worry about an invisible clock, right? And she definitely wasn't saying she was behind, right? Because who are you actually behind? Who? Who are you behind? I don't get it. So, when you have that thought that maybe you're behind, right? Their life isn't your life. Their life isn't your life. Their starting point isn't your starting point. Their responsibilities aren't your responsibilities. And their destination may not even be your destination, right? So now that doesn't mean we don't have goals or deadlines. Some things absolutely have a timeline, and that is okay. But there's a difference between a real deadline and an imaginary deadline that we place on our lives. Okay? I don't want to spend my life rushing through the day trying to get to tomorrow. I want to have goals, right? I want to keep moving. I want to keep growing. I want to look forward to what's coming, but I also want to be here for what's happening right now. Because, Coco family, here's the thing. If we're not careful, we can spend so much time racing the clock that one day we'll look back and realize there was never a race in the first place. Right? Now, I want you to have a pace. I want you to move at your own pace. But I want you to also know your pace is allowed to change, right? And this is essential to sustain. The pace that worked 6 months ago might not work today. Sometimes we can speed up. Sometimes life requires us to pull back. Sometimes we discover we have more capacity than we even thought. So adjustment isn't failure. A sustainable pace responds to the life you're actually living. So if you have to change your pace, if you find that the pace that you already have isn't working for the life that you're living in now, you can adjust it. It isn't failure. Right? Because once you have a sustainable pace, you will know you're on the right path. Right? Now, we don't all know our destinations, and sometimes the path isn't clear. But I just want you to think about the pace that you're living. Right? Have a margin. Utilize your margin. Go on that surprise dinner date. Take yourself out. Spend time with yourself. Because we work so hard building our lives that we forget to enjoy our lives. And we've talked about this before. So we know how to enjoy our life, right? We just want to keep a steady pace, if that makes sense. Right? So, like I said, once you have a sustainable pace, you'll know you're on the right path. And not because it's perfect, not because everything is going perfectly, but because you're no longer constantly fighting against your own life. You start recognizing your rhythm. You know when you have the capacity to do a little more. You also recognize when it's time to pull back. And that's important because sometimes we think changing our pace means something has gone wrong, and that's not the case. Right? It doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. Life changes, so our pace has to be allowed to change with it. There may be a season when you're able to get up early, work all day, go out in the evening, come home, and still have energy left. Right? And then there may be another season when you say, listen, what absolutely has to get done today? Like, what do I have to do today that I could do? Right? That I have the capacity to do, or I have the mental bandwidth to do, right? Because sometimes it's not as easy as getting up early, working all day, going out in the evening, coming home, doing all the things you need to do, and still have energy left. Like sometimes at some point, it's not always like that. But both can be the right pace, right? Because if you have that pace, kudos to you. All of us don't have that pace. And that's okay too, because both of them can be the right pace. The goal isn't to find one perfect pace and stay there forever. The goal is to become aware enough of yourself and your life that you know when your pace needs adjusting. And here's another thing. Slowing your pace doesn't always mean you're falling behind. Just like speeding up doesn't always mean you're getting ahead. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. What matters is whether the pace is helping you move in the direction you want to go while still allowing you to live along the way. That's all it's about. It's all about a balance, right? That's when you know you're on the right path, because a sustainable pace isn't measured by how fast you're moving. It's measured by whether you can keep moving without losing yourself in the process. It's measured by whether you can keep moving without losing yourself in the process. Okay? And that brings me to, we have to know when enough is enough for that day or that week. You have to know when enough is enough, right? Instead of asking, did I finish everything? Try asking, did I do what mattered today? Like, did I get everything done that mattered today? Because if it's mattered today, then the rest can wait a little bit, right? Because there will almost always be another email, another chore, another post, another project, another idea. But learning to say that's enough for today keeps today's work from consuming tonight's life, if that makes sense, right? So learn what matters today and worry about that. Because otherwise you're interrupting your pace. Okay? Now, here's our closing thought, right? I didn't want to make this a long, drawn out podcast today. So right into our closing thought. You don't need a pace you can survive. You need a pace you can live with. A pace that lets you pursue what matters without constantly sacrificing what matters. And when the season changes, give yourself permission to change your pace with it, right? So, our Coco may be gone, but I hope today's conversation stays with you, right? I want to thank you for sharing these Coco conversations with me today. Until next time, I am Princess, and this has been Cup of Coco and Chat. Peace, blessings. I love you. And I mean it.
Cup of cocoa and chat. I'm Princess, host of Cup of Cocoa and chat. So let's reset. So let cocoa and cocoa. So let's reset, recharge, and reconnect right here on Cup of Cocoa and chat.